carbon removals will be needed, and the sooner the better. We need them to compensate for historical CO2 emissions, and we also need them to compensate for emissions that cannot be abated.
The world is emitting too much carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. We know that we have to reduce that as far as we possibly can.
What we're ultimately looking to do is develop approaches, technological, sometimes natural, sometimes a combination of the two, that fundamentally take carbon out of the atmosphere and put it somewhere else.
To remove that 10 gigaton of CO2 a year by 2050, we really need to ramp up all CDR or tech-based CDR solutions.
One of the reasons why I'm particularly excited about BECCS as a form of carbon removal is that not only does it harness natural systems and takes advantage of sophisticated technologies to deliver high quality carbon removal, but it's also creating another valuable product in addition to carbon removal, which is low carbon energy.
BECCS is the only CDR technology which is, in addition to having a high CO2 removal potential, according to IPCC, could be up to 11 gigaton by 2050, can also produce renewable power, heat, as well as biofuels.
Climate change is a global problem and therefore needs global cooperation. Our sector really needs to take very seriously the importance of collaborating with all stakeholders, such as citizens and residents of the areas where their projects will be deployed.
Collaboration is important amongst governments so that policymakers share their best practice and their information as to what type of policy mechanisms have worked and what the experience has been, and equally what has not worked.
The carbon dioxide removal market today is tiny, but we know that by 2050, it's going to have to be huge. And therefore, the opportunity for investors and startups and entrepreneurs in this space is huge.
I think in general, it's absolutely clear that CDR, CCUS, or carbon management is very soon going to be multi-billion-dollar business. There's no question about that.
We'd be looking at 70,000 new jobs. And in terms of job retention, we'd be looking at the protection of around 77,000 jobs. And this would be in industries such as cement, steel, manufacturing, and the majority of these being in the UK's industrial heartlands. And some of these jobs would involve transitioning as well. So that involves upskilling and reskilling of existing workers into new careers.
Companies need to implement net zero plans and will need to purchase carbon removals to offset their residual emissions. Governments, on the other hand, need to encourage negative emission projects and allow removals as offsets to increasing regulatory controls and carbon taxes.
To deliver CCUS and maximise its role in meeting net zero targets, we have identified 5 key challenges that stakeholders now need to address. 1, timely cluster delivery. 2, clear deployment plans. 3, accelerate permitting and consenting. 4, delivering a healthy supply chain and skilled workforce. And the 5th is building public support.
If we fail to get the regulations around carbon dioxide removals right, we will fail to avert the worst effects of the climate crisis.
It is important that EU policies focusing on carbon removals are working and designed to work together, and not only among themselves, but also in the wider context of climate policies applied by the EU.
The most important policy to support the deployment of carbon dioxide removals is the creation of a compliance market.
Long-term storage of CO2 underground requires that the site where the CO2 is stored is properly researched and developed.
There needs to be a virtuous relationship between business, government and regulation. The private sector is developing projects and robust accounting standards, Government can then back these projects and those standards to help kickstart the market, and regulations can reinforce incentives for companies to build carbon removals into their net zero strategies.
What is needed is a new way to provide incentives and recognition for companies to channel their creativity, innovation, and capital to address the most urgent and far-reaching issue of the 21st century.